that school that we work together will also may come up in the presentation. Well, take it away.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Yes, my name is Mark. People know me Rens in Larper groups, and I am going to talk about role-playing in education. I am not used to microphones, so if you can't hear me, please tell me. So, let's start. Who am I? Yes, I am Mark Pelle. I studied in the University of Public Service Faculty of Law Enforcement. I worked at the airport. I worked as a lift mechanic. I was a mason's assistant. I was a delivery man. I was animator at different events. I worked at a webcam fortune teller service. And the list goes on. Why is this important? Because this is not a typical teacher's resume, but yet I worked as a teacher for several years. I will talk about that later. So, during all of my works, there was one common thing, and that common thing was, bam, LARPing. I played LARP since my younger years, and I'm still doing it. What I am going to talk about, I'm going to talk about school adventure days, what we organized and participated on. I'm going to talk about RECRA. RECRA is the school I was teaching in. I am going to talk about how can you bring the job, how can you bring the work into a game. I'm going to talk about Atlantis and a framework. I'm going to tell you practical examples and results, and I'm going to tell you why is this good, and what kind of teacher is needed for all of these, and my personal experience. And there will be picture phases when I will just show you awesome pictures about the events, so feel free to ask questions during it if you have any. So, school adventures. What were the school adventures? The school adventures were 1 day only, so they lasted 1 day only. There were lots of children. Usually the whole school or an age group of the children. We always put them in several groups. There were always preparation before the events for the children and even for us. There we told them one story with a beginning and an end. And the children needed different skills and educational materials for them to complete the story and to play the game. And there were always a closure, and we had a lunch together, and then we said goodbye. So the first one was Domasék. It was a remote school in a village. We had a lot of children. I mean, look at this picture. This is a lot of children. I mean, a very, very lot of children. There were around 250. Yes, 250 children. The age group were first graders until to 8th graders. That was a very big gap. It wasn't ideal. We learned that this is too much of a gap. One group consisted of 15 children. We had 15 group, and we had a group beginning and a group ending when all of the school were there, and everything closed with a moral of a fable. So, let's talk about this a little more. So, okay. The number of the children. This was a lot. This was way too much more than we can handle, and this was our first event like this. So, yes, it was really hard to manage all these children, and we couldn't handle it. But luckily, we had all the teachers participated in the event, so that helped a lot. And first graders to eighth graders is a very big age gap because you can't create a content what is good for a first grader, what will be good for an eighth graders too. But what you can manage, and I think we managed that successfully, is that you bring the first graders closer to the eighth graders. We made the groups that általános. The general age in the groups consisted of the same. So like there were 4 first graders and 4 eighth graders and stuff like that. So yes, and 15 group was a lot. Because of that 15 group, we needed 15 station where we can work with the children. To have 15 station where we can work with the children, we need 15 people at least to manage one station. So this one required a lot of helpers and a lot of LARPers. Yes, the important part that anyone who participated in this event were LARPers and teachers. Yes, the beginning, we had a story. The story was we were close to the summer break, so the story was that an evil dragon came and take the time away because you children have a lot of time and you don't need it, so I'm going to take it away and screw you because I'm evil. So the children had to get back their time so they will be able to enjoy their summer break. So all the 15 station which we had was a preparation for the big event to the joint ending we are going to have. In the preparation, they learned how to sword fight. They learned different magical chanting what can take off the dragon's defense. They met the dragon's henchmen and defeated them and outsmarted them and stuff like that. And they used everything they get during the whole event at the ending. They learned, they used the chanting, they used the little magical balls they crafted and stuff like that. And in the end, we had the moral of the fable that if the children, if you all work together, there is no evil that you cannot defeat. So yes, we had, the school had a lot of preparing before the event. They made themselves flags that they can wield during the event. This is a picture from the flag making. They got in groups before the event, so they just have to get together. This is our equipment, and this is us. And these are pictures that they have drawn after the event, and the teachers have sent it to us. By the way, yes, if you have any question now, I can answer them. Okay. So the second event was Fairtud. We had much fewer children, only 80 to 100. It was way more comfortable, way more easier for them to handle. We required less people, and we could make a more targeted content to them. The age group was better aligned. We had 5th and 6th graders, so we didn't have to suffer a lot because of the group making. Basically, we could just put them anywhere, anyhow we wanted. Same groups, same stations. We had a different story, but the beginning and the ending was similar. Like one big group beginning where all of the children were there. We tell them a story, what is going to happen. We had a little stand-up for them. And then the children went away. They started the group games, and we had the same similar ending, where the moral of the fable that if we work together. There is nothing that we cannot achieve. Yes, but let me talk a little about Fertőd, because this one was really, really good, and maybe this was the first event that really struck me in the heart. First, a lot of people enjoyed it, not only the children, but the organizers too, because it was a smaller group. We had a little more time to breathe and a little more time to feel what is happening. And in the ending, where all of the children were gathering around to have the final fight, where we chosen the champion that who is going to fight for their fellow children. The evil guys came to the scene, and there was the gremlin, the goblin, the swamp creature. The swamp creature story was that he was not evil, but a dark spell got over him and his mind was controlled. There was a way for the children to understand it and learn about it, and most of them did. And in the ending, when we were preparing to strike down the evil force, one of the children started to yell, not really loud yell, I mean, he was shy, but he said that maybe we shouldn't hurt the swamp creature because he is not evil, he's just mind controlled and stuff like that. So we started to ask about it, and yes, started to ask him to tell more about it, and some children started to feel passionate about the swamp creatures too. Yet maybe we shouldn't hurt him. And it started to be a thing that the children said, oh, no, okay, don't do it. But the champions were selected. Some children with a sword started to swing it around, and it was starting to get aggressive. And one of the children raised his sword and said, let's kill the swamp creature too. And I asked him, why do you want to kill the swamp creature? Just kill the swamp creature too. So I went to him, take away a sword, and I told him that no, everyone's saying that the swamp creature is good, he's only mind controlled, and killing it is bad, and you cannot call yourself a hero if you want to kill someone who is not bad. And I saw that this children was one of the cool guys in the schools. And I saw that he started to look a little inside. And the children around started to think that, yes, maybe this is not so good that he wants to kill the swamp creatures and we don't want to kill it. So there was a new champion selection. And it was very heartfelt. It felt really good that the children were so engaged in the story, and they had even a moral lesson. The swamp creature. Okay, if you guys don't have any questions about school adventures, then I am going to talk about the Recrea. The Recrea is the private school I was a teacher in. So, what is Recrea? Blam! Pictures of happy children doing stuff. Basically, every school can do this. If you write Google that school project days and stuff like that, you will get the same pictures. The only difference is that here, in every picture, there are the same children, more or less. So, yes, what is Recrea? One group consists of 6 children. No more, no less, 6. Same age, or close to it. We are going to start with them at 1st grade and take them to the 5th or 6th grade. For the 6 children, they get 1 teacher or 1.5 in an ideally. The children are adventurers in a fantasy world. And this is where the role-playing and the LARPing will begin soon. And the children are constantly on a big adventure to save the world, to save Atlantis, and they are constantly shaping the world they are in. And we are bringing the work into the play. I will soon talk about this. Let's talk about Atlantis. Atlantis was the basic fantasy world that we use with the children to play on. One big unexplored map, several smaller islands, and even a big ocean around this, what could be explored. This is one of the islands that the children used and the children drew. I'm going to talk about this. Why we used islands and why we used Atlantis. Because on an island, you can completely teach geography easily. This was all an empty map at first. We asked the children that draw anything you want on it. You can draw hills, you can draw rivers, you can draw ponds and stuff like that. You can draw forests, you can draw whatever you want. And they started to draw. So slowly, they started to draw ponds and rivers. And we told them, okay, but if there is a river, the river has to go into the sea. So you have to make it outside of the sea. And if you are making a hills, the water has to go downward. So you have to take a river and take it down to the hill. And they started to draw forests. And we told them, okay, but for the forest, water has to be somewhere nearby, and stuff like that. And after that, they started to put down cities and towns and stuff like that. And we told them, of course, you can put down a city nearly anywhere, but for that city to be alive, it needs to be, a dock city, or it should be in the center of the village, center of the island. And of course, you can draw down a city, but to a city to survive, it must need at least 3 smaller towns. And the smaller town have to survive somehow. Are they going to be a fishing village? Are they going to be a fishing village? Or are they going to be a woodcutter village? Or are they going to be a mining village? Because if a mining village, then it needs to be close to a hill and stuff like that. So with this, we could teach them economy, we could teach them geography, we could teach them stuff about society, we could teach them about sailing and water trading and several things. This is just a picture from the setting that we want to give them. So again, what is Atlantis? Atlantis is an enormous fantasy world. We had gods, we had magic, we had religion, everything what a basic fantasy setting is. We had several races. Why is this important? Because we could teach them about different races. We could show them racism without the actual racism. We could teach them about acceptance and stuff like that. We had magical creatures. Why was magical creatures important? Because we could teach them biology with them. Why a unicorn has horn? Why a griffin has wings? And we can slowly transfer it to actual creatures. We had teleport gates to the other worlds. Why was this important? Because from Atlantis, you could go anywhere, anytime in the real world or in a fantasy world, and any place in a real world or a fantasy world. So you could go in and have a chat with Kossuth, or be there with Leonidas at the Spartan fire gate. there was no death in Atlantis. That meant that since there was teleport gates all over the world, when you would have died, in the moment where you would have died, you just teleported away from the world and lost all of your memory. This was needed because the children were small, first graders, second graders, third graders, and that is a really hard topic. And in a fantasy settings, in role-playing, what are you going to do? You are going to go fight pirates, fight goblins, fight everything, cast fireballs and stuff like that. And for the first graders, to cast a fireball that will vaporize a ship full of pirates, that wouldn't be a very good message to a lot of people, especially for the parents. So yeah, there was no that. There were ideas that slowly we are going to clear this rule when the children will be big enough for it, like fourth or fifth graders. But at the beginning, there is no that on Atlantis. And as I said, we had working economy, we have bank system, we had geography, we had everything what we have in the real world, what we can teach them and show them how things work in real life. So, Atlantis still. All of the children are adventurers and they are serving a king. Not the same king, serving a king. They can choose their own king. They can name anyone they want. Some of the kids had Leonidas as a king. Other people had different. This was important because the children had a higher up that they had to report to, that they had to listen to, that can order them to do something. It worked as a break for the children. Like if they are going to go in a very wrong way, we can use in-game ideas for them to call back. Like if your king comes back and saying that this won't end well, then the children usually listens. They are earning pearls. Pearls is basically money, but we haven't said money, we said pearls. This was important for two reasons. One reason that you could give them into their hand and they could grab it and look it and eat it and lick it and feel like, oh, shiny stuff. And kids always like shiny stuff. And secondly, we wanted to teach them about money and stuff. So for that, they needed to have money. The children needed to do accounting. Every time they earned something, every time they finished the task, we told them, okay, you will get 400 pearls for it. But for this, they needed to write down that, okay, I cleared a bandit lair. That earned me 400 pearls. And I had 1,600 pearls before. Now I'm going to earn 2,000 on my payouts, on my payday. And the second very important thing is whatever they did, it had a consequence. So that consequence could have been a good thing, that consequence could be a bad thing, but whatever they did, it was a consequence. And during their time in Atlantis, they got equipment, they got allies, they got skills, and every children had their own little inventory and skills and allies they had to manage all the time. And as they got much bigger and much older, the list would just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. These were the money. We had pearls, but there is only a few pearls that you can get into your hands. So we used Roman numbers. So we could teach them about Roman numbers and different calculations with Roman, right? Roman, yeah. So Roman numbers. Calculation with Roman numbers requires a different kind of skills, and it's it's a good thing to teach them, and they liked it, because Roman numbers are awesome. Of course, it is awesome. So let's talk about the rule system we had. We didn't have a fixed rule system, because a first grader differs a lot from a third grader, even from a second grader. Even a first grader differs a lot from a first grader. So because of this, we couldn't use a fixed rule system. We had to constantly change it. We had to constantly improve it. We had to touch it all the time. But we had to keep in mind one very important thing, that it needed consistency. We couldn't change stuff so other stuff would be meaningless. Because if the children were working towards something, and suddenly we said, okay, that doesn't work, nothing from now on, then the children would be devastated, they would lose their motivation, and our whole job would get a lot more harder. We need to do the rules based around the children, like what kind of children we had, how old were they, and we had to base it around what kind of education material we wanted to show them, what kind of educational material we needed to teach them. So, we are going to talk about the framework, the practical practices we used, and bringing work into the game, what this exactly means. First, a practical exam. You will make 5 multiplications, and when you are done, you can roll the dice. That sounds boring, and of course it is boring. But what if we bring in cards that you can touch, that you can look at, that you can put on together? That's getting very good. Then what if we bring fantastical creatures in it, like there is a tiefling bandit that you are fighting, and you need to see the gap in her defense, and by calculating the arc of your sword, you can hit her. And what if we bring in multiple dice, like you roll with 2 dice or 3 dice, and of course then you have to add together the dices, which will just make more calculation. And the most important part, what if we bring in murder? Children love murder. Everyone loves murder. We just don't talk about it. So, yes, this exactly happened. I wanted to teach my first graders adding. And how do you get over the number 10? Like 6 and 6 equals 12. And I looked my equipment. What do I have? Well, I have cards. So, okay, then use cards. What do I have? I have dices. Okay, then I have dices. What do I have? That's all, as I can see. So I made the story about that. Okay, guys, you are, at the moment, you are in the training grounds, and you are fighting your instructor, who is posed as a bandit. And you are going to fight him, and to defeat him, you need to find openings in his defense. That will be the adding. But if you make it wrong, then he's going to attack you. But if you make it good and make the 5 multiplications, the adding, then you can roll the dice, and that will be the damage you make. And of course, the Bandit King will attack back too, so at every minute, he will attack once, and he will roll with the dice too, and that roll will be his damage, or her damage. And what happened was, well, it was amazing and it was funny. I never saw children cheering for another, and it was a group game because I played it with 2 children. So if one of them finished with the adding, he couldn't attack. He had to wait for the other children so he can finish the adding too, and they will attack together. because that's the only way to achieve victory. So what happened, yes, was really weird, but felt really good that I never saw that before, that one children is cheering for the other children, that come on, Buchu, come on, do the adding. And it was, for them it was a very exciting and very pumping experience that they added, then they rolled with the dice. And with this method, they completed more than 100 adding, because for one attack you had to make 5 calculations, and basically the Bandit King had about 30. So yeah, that at least 4 rolling, so that we'll make at least 20 adding. And we had several games in 1 hour, and it started to get too easy for them. So I had to add minions for the Bandit King. So they were fighting against a group of enemies, and it just escalated, and as I said, they made more than 100 calculations. First graders, 6 and 7 years old. Usually in a math book, if you can finish 20, then you achieved victory and everything. So let's talk about some practical examples too. Pearls and paydays. As I said, everything they did, they earned pearls. They had to do accounting for it. And every week, on every Friday, they had a payday. So we checked on their accounting. We checked what was the reason they got the pearls earned and how many pearls they earned, so we paid for them. And as I showed you guys, there was paper money. So we paid them out, and they have to give back some of it, like an exchange when you go into a shop and pay with cash. I know this is a little old thing, but yes, it's still useful. So they had to write things, they had to calculate things, and even they had to they had to calculate change in their head and give us some money back. After each mission and adventures and stuff like that, they had to write reports to their higher-ups. So they learned how to write reports. They received letters from different people, from their king, from their allies, from a merchant, and they had to write letters back. They had to reply for them. They had to share stuff with each other. They had to share information. They had to share equipment. They had to share pearls. They had to share the works and stuff like that. We had ship combat. They, at point of the adventure, they received ships, and they were the captain of that ship. And any adventure wouldn't be an adventure without a ship combat. And how do you do a ship combat? With math, of course, because the ships has catapults. And for you to hit the other ship with the catapult, you need to do calculations. And the other ship will do calculations, of course, too. And after each calculation, or a set of calculations, you were allowed to shoot. And of course, there was some luck factor, so you rolled with the dice, because everyone is love rolling with the dice. And so the hit wasn't guaranteed, so you had to make more calculations to be sure, and stuff like that. And all this you had to make very, very fast, because the other ship is shooting you, so you need to shoot it down before it shoots you. So yes, calculations under pressure, work under pressure. We made different escape rooms for the children to solve, and shape changer test. In Atlantis, very big enemies were the god Loki and his minions. And Loki is a shape changer, so of course he's going to have shape changer minions. But the shape changer minions are very bad at grammar. So how do you know if someone is a shape changer? Of course, you are going to do a grammar test. And each time children received an ally, he had to make a shape changer test. If the children was bad at the grammar, then of course the ally will be bad in the grammar. And because if the ally is bad in the grammar, he's going to be a shape changer. So if the grammar test was a failure, then he got into the prison, where he could try it again with a little learning that if he can redo it perfectly, then he's not a shape changer. It's okay. So this was a very good motivation for grammar. So how can you make something like this? Because Atlantis and all the things I just told you are frameworks for a bigger thing. Yes, it's only a framework. Decide on what do you want to teach, like what I told you about the Bandit King fight. There I wanted to teach them calculation. But here, decide anything you want to teach. Build around a mechanic, around what do you want to teach them. That mechanic has to work. That's very important, that find a mechanic that will work, which is needed. If you make a mechanic that is not needed, that of course you can use it, by why would you use it? Like, I don't know, of course you can shoot catapult with grammar, and if you read 3 pages from the Bible, or you could do 5 calculations. Of course you will do the 5 calculations because it's much, much faster. So make a mechanic what is needed, and it comes back regularly. So the kids have a memory like a fish. They will forget it really, really fast. So it needs to come back constantly, like the accounting. The kids did accounting hourly, so they will remember how to do accounting. The children were fighting ship combats, not daily, but 2 or 3 times a week. So of course they will remember that mechanic and stuff like that. So yes, you need to bring back it constantly. Make a good skin for it, like same with the Bandit King. Like if you look at it at bare bones, just put cards on together, then roll with the dice. But if you make a good story for it, if you make it exciting, if you find a way for the children to fantasize about it and think about it, and they will say, yes, this is awesome, they will be more engaged to it. Represent it, teach it. Show them, kids, this will be awesome because, and you show them what will be awesome. And you will teach them. To do this and be awesome, you need to learn this. So they will learn it. And then you will practice it, and then slowly you can use it constantly. Check the children's reactions. Did they like it? Did they not? Were there any problems? If there were any problems, if they had if they didn't like it, then change it according to the experience. So you have to constantly change your systems. You have to constantly change your word. You have to constantly change everything, because the children will grow up from day to day. You need to improve everything around them. And yes, and repeat this process constantly. Yes, this is a video. Is this going to play? Yes. It's just a little picture. What is happening? On a tablet, they are playing Zeus versus Monsters. Zeus versus Monsters is a very basic game. 2D, Zeus or Athene standing on the left. Monsters are coming from the right, and 3 choices appear on the top floor, the top screen, and there is a calculation, and you need to pick the good calculations. The most basic stuff ever, but the kids love it. It's a video game, it has monsters, it has gods, and when you kill a monster, it looks awesome. Like Zeus brings down lightning and kills a monster. Yes, of course, it's awesome, but this is all about math. You just do calculations all the time and picking out choices. And the kids loved it. They play 20 minutes a day, then they will make more than 200 calculations. And that's a lot for children. Why all this? Why is this good? The kids, they try things out in practice. With role-playing, with LARPing, you can put everything in a perspective. Like, why do you need to build a town? Why do you need to build a village next to a hill? Because there will be a mine, and you can send the villagers to the mine, and the villagers will mine out stuff that you can bring to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith will make you swords out of it. And if you make swords out of it, you can sell the swords to the cities, and if you sell the swords, you are going to have money, and if you have money, then you can buy equipment. If you have equipment, you can go to adventuring, and adventuring is fun. So of course you want to go adventuring, but for that you have to build a village next to a mine. Play plays a very important role in learning. People, not just children, people love to play, and when you are playing, you learn better, because humans build like that, but animals are built like that too. Like the cats learning how to hunt with playing. Humans kind of the same. When you play, you will learn better, you will learn faster, and you will remember things for a much longer. If the children are having fun, and they will have fun if you do it correctly, then they will be much more motivated, so you can push them more and more and more and more. And the children can be pushed very, very much. You would be surprised how much little children can learn from you and how much capacity they have. My first graders were able to they received a message in a numerical in a binary system, and they received the letter in a binary system. So they translated that binary system to letters, and they received English, a letter full of English letters, and they had to translate it to Hungarian so they can understand it, but they had to still take the words away because it was just one bunch of letters. And yes, so they basically translated binary numbers to letters, which was an English text, so they had to translate it to Hungarian. And these children were 7 years old at the time. You can conduct several subjects with several knowledges together. Like I said, with the village example, or you can do things like that, like with magical creatures. I don't know if there is no. I just got a little brain fight. I'm sorry. So yes, you can teach them several subjects and several knowledge, and you can connect them together, like the village example, or like any example you can think of, because now I can think of any. But the most important thing is motivation, because this system will give the children, will give everyone a motivation. I don't know what kind of results the children get in different countries, but in Hungary, we give them grades from 1 to 5. And that's all. The children don't give a fuck what those numbers are. They don't care about the grades. They don't even know what that means, that, okay, I got a 5, good. I mean, that must be good. My mom and dad said, I need to get number 5s all the way, because if I don't, then I can't play with the computer, or I can't go out, and stuff like that. But they don't care about the number, it's just a number. But if you give them little cards, if you give them swords, if you give them shields, if you give them skills, magic, a village, allies, if you give them an environment where they can play in, they will be motivated to do the stuff. Because that's all just playing. And they just get stronger and stronger. And the children know what a sword is. They don't know what a number 5 means as a result, but they know that a sword that deal D6 damage, they know what that D6 damage means. So what kind of teacher is needed to do this? The teacher needs to understand the children and be able to teach them. This is basically every teacher that should be. Have a basic understanding in all of the subjects and need to do a lot of interesting things about the world so they can keep things interesting. Because in Recrea there is only one teacher for a whole group. Because of that, you need to be able to teach everything. But even if we are not talking about the school specifically, to be able to connect different subjects, you need to at least understand what those subjects are about. Be able to speak English. English is the language of the world. You can't escape it. You need it. If you know English, the whole world will be an open book in front of you, and that's a good thing. So teach your children English. The teacher needs to understand what role-playing is. He has to be, or she has to be able to be a DM and have to understand the new several rule system so he can implement them in any way. He can make his own rule system, or he can get information and get different methods from different systems and use them. And have your own flavor, have your own personality that you can bring to the children. In Recrea, there were 3 of us, and all of us were very, very different. And for the children, it was very good because they could meet with different persons, and they could have anticipation what they could expect from one of the teachers. And if you have several kind of people that you can put in front of the children, that is a good thing because they will meet several kind of people. And technology is good. Tablets are good. Video games on tablets are good. Using Word, PowerPoint, using the internet is good. And in this life, you need it. So teach that to your children, that how to use it and how can you find information on the internet and stuff like that. But for that, you need to understand the technology that you are going to teach them. Pictures. Anyone has a question? No? Okay. That will be good too. We are getting close to the end. So. And we are getting to the last part. My personal experiences with all of these. Holy shit, it works, of course, but maybe not only because of this. What I see is good. Every time when I worked at the school, the children were happy. They got a lot smarter during their studies. And they were motivated, and yes, it worked, and it was really, really good. One of the most interesting things for me was that they wanted to go to school. That was a completely alien thing to me, that why would anyone want to go to school? Yes, they were motivated. They knew a lot more about stuff. They had a lot more experience, and they had a lot more knowledge about stuff than other children in their same age group. Like the thing I said about translating from binary to English. But I am not sure that it is because of this system. I mean the role-playing part. Of course, it plays a big role, but I said there were 6 children in one group. 6 children is not a lot. So if you use different methods and you use those methods right, I'm sure that you can get the same or kind of the same results with them. This system is not for everybody. For every time when children wanted to come to our school, we said, of course, get in. We give you a week. This week will be free. We told this to the parents too, that this week will be free. We try out the kids, and the kid will try out us. If we can work together, if the kid wants this, and we try it out. And there were a few cases when, yes, the child said that, no, this is not for me. Or we said that this children is not for us. We can't work with him or she. This thing requires a lot of work, and I mean a lot of work. You need to make cards, you need to make rule system, you need to make the connections, how will you connect stuff together, and yeah, and constantly making up new ideas, learning about what the school requires from the children, so you can make a system for that requirement, and so on and so on. You will have a much deeper bond with the children. One of the reasons is that 6 children, 1 teacher, that will make a deep bond. That's not a question that will happen. And because you are role-playing and you try out different roles you are playing with them, once you are their friends, once you are their enemies, once you are the merchant, once you are the king, and the list goes on and goes on. Because of this, you are going to have a much deeper bond with the children. This is good, because you can understand them better and you can see in their heads better. And this is bad, because the children will have a much harder time letting you away. And this can actually make problems, and there are several psychological topics that work with this team. We can show them a lot more, and we can show them and we can teach them more. If you are playing, if you are role playing, you can basically teach them anything you want, and you don't need, and yes, I have spoken a lot about this before. You will make a lot of experiences, and you will make a lot of memories for the children. These experiences will be practical too. They will work under pressure. They will learn about sharing with others and stuff like that. But this is expensive. For this, in Rekra, we had 6 children. My experience is that you can make 10 children at most. With 10, the 10 is the upper limit. If there will be 11, that will be too much. Some children will suffer from that system. So, because you have 10 children, and that 10 children have to pay for your electricity, your cards that you are going to print out, your salary, your colleague's salary, the rent, those 10 children have to pay for everything. Their parents, of course, but they have to pay for everything. It's going to be a private school. There is no work around it. You can do this in a public school. What you can do in the public school is the thing that I have spoken in the beginning. School days, what will take only 1 day. But for a whole system to work, to build something up, you need half a year. This will be very good, but it will be expensive. And most likely, you won't get rich from it, but you will teach rich children, so it will have a pretty bad psychology on you as the time comes. Like, one of the reasons I left the teachers, left the school, because I had 2003 Ford Focus. I poured in, and then Porsche parked next to me, and the children and the parent got out of it, and they went to the school. I love them, of course I love them, but I realized that if I stay here, I'm not going to be able to live on a very big food. And this is the final picture, children playing with swords, because swords and murder is fun. This is one of the most important lessons. Don't forget it. So, questions? You had...
I have 3 questions.
Okay.
And I will try to be quick. So first...
Same.
Same thing. Okay, cool. So streaming people will hear me if the streaming is still on. So first question is about the role-playing part. So I'm curious about the characters of the children. Are they constantly in character? Do they have characters at all at that age? How do you manage that?
Basically, when someone came into our school, the first thing that he stepped into Atlantis, he received a character, but that character was the children. He had the same name, and he played mostly himself. He played himself or herself, but in different scenarios. But the children played, sometimes the children played the other children allies, or we told them a story where this is not about your characters, the story is about your characters' allies, and then they played their allies.
Okay, great. That answers perfectly. My second question is about timing, because you said in 1 hour, we did math for 1 hour and they did so many calculations. Were there any breaks? How do you manage your time, like work time and break time?
One day, each day started at 8:30. We had fencing lessons. That was our gym class. After that, we had breakfast. We always have a breakfast together. During breakfast, we watched Peppa Pig and Ben and Holly, and stuff like that in English. So during breakfast, we learned English. After that, they washed their teeth, got back, and we had our first hour, 1 hour and a half occupation. That was our class. Then a break, then a second occupation, second class, same 1 hour, 1.5. Then we had, after the first class, we had 10 hour, they eated fruits. So we read them a story, then the class happened, then after that lunch. During lunch, the same English lesson, and after that they had to read 1 hour, read anything they wanted, and after that they were basically free. So at 1 p.m. we stopped teaching.
So you had long slots, but with interesting things in them.
Yes.
Okay. And my final question is the longest one. That's why it's final. How did you get, in the first case, the schools, and in the second case, the parents, how did you get their buy-in?
Like most things happen in Hungary with standing. The guy who organized the school was a teacher, he had connections, and he got the first batch of children around him, and he had 1 children too, so he wanted to make this school for him, so he got the children around him, and we had the first group then, and since we had 1 working group, then we could advertise ourselves, like, check out guys, our children are doing this, we had pictures, we had stuff like that, and sadly, the parents doesn't care much about their children. Most of the parents, and my experience that most of the rich parents doesn't care about their children, they care about the results. That they need to get the best results from everything. I had 2 or 3 children from a middle class. They doesn't care about the results, they cared about their children. They were like more like they knew that their children had a problem, and we worked with those problems. Like they had anxiety problems and stuff like that, and they were they enjoyed it much more if the children got a positive attitude. So yes, when the children started to get good results on tests and stuff like that, then most of the parents were satisfied. So they told the other parents, yeah, this is working. Check out my boy. He got 5 from everything. He's awesome.
Thank you.
5 from everything at what? If they're going to your school without grades, where did they get 5s in everything?
Private school system in Hungary works like that. You have to go to one school, one public school, board in. Then you are going to say, bye guys, I'm going to be a private student. And at every half a year, you are going to make a test. And that test will give you the results. So in our school, we didn't have any results. We didn't give them 5s. We give them pearls and weapons and allies and skills. But in every half a year, they went to the public school and they had a test. And they usually performed good on it.
And they did the full school system, 1st to 8th grade at your school.
Yes. Basically they go to public schools, but only to write tests.
That's really cool, because then you have actual data to support that this works.
Yes, exactly. So it's help us because we can see that what we need to prepare the children for.
Thanks.
You're welcome. It's fine. It's not.
So you mentioned that you are teaching from the 1st grade to the 5th or 6th grade.
Yes.
So it means 6 or 7 years old children until 11, 12. But according to the Hungarian education system, there are still 2 years until they can go to high school.
Yes.
So what happens?
There are several systems what's called kis gymnasium, small gymnasium, what will start at 5th grade. So the children can get into gymnasium at 5th grade, but still 5th or 6th is not a number that is written in stone. We can take them even to the finishing of the schools, but our experience is that the children get a little bored out until 5th or 6th grade. And because they had to make tests in every half year, they learn everything what they need to get in the get in the public school system. Mm-hmm. So getting in won't be a problem. It will be just a different word for them, and they're different kind of learning, but they would be able to jump it. We are testing out this now because our first children got into the public school system about half a year ago. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And my other question would be that you said examples what you can, what fantasy you can use to teach, for example, geography and calculation and stuff. Do you start each of these examples from the beginning, from the 1st grade, or you consider the age characteristics of the children?
Yes, of course, we consider the children's age, but we make the base for everything. So children can accept a lot of things. They have a very big mind, a very open mind for everything. So if we see that the children are interested in mythology and stuff like that, they don't need to know about mythology, but they really like the story of Odysseus and Ilias, and how did the Greeks siege the city of Troy and stuff like that, and they are very interested in the gods. So of course we can teach them, because in the school system there is not a very high they don't accept a lot of things from the children. They only need to do basic calculations and stuff like that. We can finish that in a month. So we will have 4 months to do whatever we want. So we are going to build and build and build and make the foundation for everything.
How old are your schools? Sorry, again.
Sorry?
How old are your schools?
6,
yeah.
around, yes, 6 years, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
This is a pretty new thing, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You said that the first generation just did 1 year out of your school, or they're just going out of your school?
The first generation
Yes.
is now 5th or 6th graders. So they left our school to go to public school just now.
So they did not experience public school yet. They're just now going to the
Yes,
public school. So
yes.
you don't have any feedback yet how they're doing
No.
in a completely different system, how they adapted.
The information I have is that they are managing. But yes, I don't have a really detailed answer for that, sadly. But they experience public schools because they had to go in for the test, and they make the test in a crowded classroom and stuff like that. So it's not a very new thing to them. It's just a different one.
Well, taking the test is not new, but the whole type of learning where you have to
Yes.
sit and listen and do nothing is really different.
Yes, our goal was to make children to. So our goal was to. Yeah. So okay, I go with the making. So our goal is to make children who can think and learn by themselves. So if you get into the public school system with the mindset that you can think and to learn for yourself, then you will be fine.
Thanks.
You're welcome. There was a question.
Thanks. You've mentioned that you use cartoons to teach languages, English in
Yes, yes.
particular, to the first graders. How do you handle that with bigger children, like 4th grade, 5th grade?
Everyone.
I mean, is it based only on watching stuff in English, so like creating the environment around them, or do you introduce that in the workshops that you do?
Yes, the answer is yes, in general, for everything. So we start with cartoons. When they get bigger, we may change Peppa Pig to a different kind of cartoon. And when they get big enough, or they just don't have to get big enough, we can change it constantly. Like even with my 2nd graders, I watched the BBC English Deadly 60, what is a natural show about animals and stuff like that. And we have, and we make it to our workshop too, because the language of magic is English. So if you want to cast something, if you want to learn magic, you have to do it in English. Because if you try magic in a different language, it won't work. And with this system, we can put any language, like we can teach them German this way, we can teach them Latin, we can teach whatever we want.
So just a follow-up to the first one. Again, these children need to get back to the system at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to the more boring theoretical aspect of the language, like present perfect, for example, how do you handle that? Because everything that you said so far is preparing very practical, like it creates functional language. And from my experience, I'm an English teacher, so this is what, yeah. So I have a lot of kids who are playing computer games, for example, who absolutely, like, they have functional language. It's great. You can have a whole conversation with them. But when it comes to doing a test, it gets very difficult for them to make a difference between perfect, continuous, like different aspects.
Yes, I understand. When we are watching cartoons, then we are not just watching them. During a half an hour lunch, we watch only one 5-minute episodes, because we are constantly stopping it. What did he said? The children repeat. What does it mean? And stuff like that. And Peppa Pig is a really good cartoon for English, because it has a lot of grammar to show, so we can teach them grammar. And yes, a part I haven't talked about is that every last month, when we are closing to the public school test, every last month we are getting out the school books, like exercise books and stuff like that, and the children will fill out everything until they reach the part that they don't need for the exam. That will be the next, but that will be the end year exam. Okay. Akkor last question. Okay.
Can you tell me a short example about how you teach them the letters for writing?
Writing is the most boring part. You can't escape that. You need to sit the kid down, have an exercise book, and write the letters. But we can motivate them that they will receive letters from people, and for them to be able to read the letters and to be able to answer them, you need to learn how to write. So we just give them the motivation, but you can't escape writing. Writing will be boring.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.